So today I had planned to evaluate all of the horses that I would be starting this fall, but yesterday I noticed that Mort wasn't chewing properly. I was lucky enough that the vet had an opening the next day, so I'm gonna hook up the trailer and we are gonna take Mort to the vet today. He did have a tooth extracted about 5 months ago. I'm hoping that he just needs to have his mouth rebalanced because of the missing tooth. He wasn't due for a checkup until next month, but the weather's been really nice, so I figured I'd get it done while there's no snow on the ground. Scarlett still gets super excited whenever I hook the trailer up. Since I'm going to be using the fuel anyway, I'm going to bring some extra horses along. It is really important to me that my horses behave in the trailer and they don't get too stressed whenever we have to go anywhere. So I spend a lot of time preparing them and taking them on little trips, even when we don't really have any place to go. Today I am going to take Skeletor and Studman. Skeletor has been doing so much better now that he has his own space. I have been able to feed him a little bit extra and it's definitely showing. Here are some dapples that are showing through his winter coat, so that's pretty impressive. Pretty much every time I take the horses somewhere, they get a little snack in the trailer. I really would like them all to be excited about going on trailer rides. And I think just letting them have a little bit of a snack inside really helps. I'm going to put Studman in first. I do have a stud partition in the first slot in my trailer. He was actually really awful when I first got him. He slammed around and kicked and pawed the entire 2-hour ride home from the sale. He is a gelding now, and I have done 2 training runs with him in the trailer. The other times I trailered him, I did not expect him to get in without any other horses, so this should be a good test for him. This is the entire time it took for him to get in the trailer. I didn't edit anything out. When I'm first training a horse to load, I don't chase them around or use a butt rope or have another person help me. I think it's really important to give them the time they need to investigate the space and feel comfortable that they're allowed to get in without any pressure. My trailer is pretty open and inviting, and even if I buy a horse that has a real problem trailer loading, usually after a few easy sessions they hop right in. He did give the trailer a little shake when he was in there when I went to close the partition, but after it was closed he stood nice and quietly in there. Skeletor has been hauled multiple times. He was actually super easy to get to load at the horse sale I bought him from. He is just a very trusting and willing horse, so this shouldn't be any problem for him. He can get a little bit fidgety in the trailer if he's all by himself, but we're working on that. He hopped right on, and then I was ready to go get Mort. They were out in the pasture when I had started loading Studman and Skeletor, and I thought that they would be in by the time I was done. But Mort and Stewie were way out in the back pasture, so I brought them a little bit of their breakfast to try and coax them in. Little Gus never misses a meal, so he was over first to investigate what kind of food I brought for them. He must have been turned out with a big herd of horses at one point because he acts like if he doesn't get his food right away, there might not be any left for him. I'm surprised that Stewie isn't coming in because usually he loves getting extra food. Usually once they hear the little sound of the grain going in the feed bins, they come galloping in. My pasture really isn't that big, but I think they probably have a hard time hearing it from the far, far pasture, which is where both of them were. And I finally saw that Stewie was running in for some snacks. It is a little odd that Mort is taking so long to come in. It has been getting below freezing every night, and last year he did have some trouble with wintertime laminitis. He has really, really tiny feet, and I think the blood flow has been compromised. He had really bad navicular when I got him, which is just a catch-all term for pain in the back of their foot. He does have some changes to his navicular bones that show up on radiographs, and he also has some corresponding damage to his tendons. I wanted to see how lame he actually was, so I made him trot a little bit, and he looks like he is really sore on pretty much every leg, which is really frustrating, but it is something that I'll definitely have the vet take a look at when we're there. This is what he was doing yesterday, just licking and chewing a little bit weird. When I get a horse in for rehab, I get to know them pretty well, so for him that was really out of the ordinary. And even though he was eating and drinking fine, I thought it was worth the trip to the vet. Since this is a training run for Studman and Skeletor, after I get everybody loaded, I just kind of hang around for a few minutes to make sure they know that even though they're on the trailer, they might not be moving anywhere for quite a while. I think this really helps with their patience and they learn how to stand still. All of them were really good, so I went in the barn to get them a few little treats. These are the ones that the horses love. They aren't great for horses that have metabolic issues, but for these horses, for a little snack on the trailer is fine. I was kind of surprised that Studman wasn't thrashing around, but I think that he's finally learned that this is an okay place to be and that there are some perks involved with trailer rides. Skeletor was also standing really well, so I gave him a little treat. And even though Mort was having a little bit trouble chewing, I offered him a treat, which he really was excited about taking. I was a little bit ahead of schedule, so I had time to clean some stalls before we actually left. These boys were perfect, and after a quick check of the trailer, we were headed to the vets. The trip takes less than an hour, and before I knew it, we were there. All the boys did great. I didn't feel anybody squirming around during the ride. Studman looked pretty content to be munching on his hay, and Skeletor was doing really good too. And it was just another trailer ride for Mort. I don't like to be in a rush when I go to the vets, so I was about 20 minutes early for my appointment. When a horse gets a tooth extracted, you usually have to go revisit the vet several times to get it repacked until the spot fills in. So Mort has been here at least half a dozen times over the last year. I got him off the trailer and let him stand, and I groomed him for a little bit just so he could relax. It took several hours to get all of his tooth out last year, and I think even though he was heavily sedated for that, he does remember the experience. Because he does have a tooth missing, typically the one that is supposed to grind against it will grow a little bit faster. So it's important to get their teeth checked just to make sure everything is lining up correctly. I scheduled him for just a regular dental, so it should be a lot easier than his time here in the spring. After I was done grooming him, he was pretty content to just stand around and wait for his turn to see the vet. When they were finally ready to see him, we got him inside and in the stocks. The technicians took his temperature, pulse, and respiration. Even though Mort looks pretty calm, he is actually a little bit of a high-strung horse. He usually fights the sedation quite a bit, and they end up having to give him more than a typical horse. I usually have the vet come out once a year to do dentals on all my horses. I do have a video on it if you guys want to check that out. I'll link it in the description. Once Mort was finally sedate enough to get the speculum on, it didn't take long to figure out that this trip was going to be a lot more significant than I had thought. There were several bone fragments where his tooth should have been healed from the spring, and he had another fractured tooth as well. All of the loose fragments were taken out, and then we did some radiographs, which showed he did need the other tooth extracted. Mort was treated fairly aggressively by his previous owner with a drug that one of the side effects is the inability for bones to heal properly, which could be the reason we are having so much trouble with his teeth now. The extraction was something they didn't have time for today, so I brought all the horses home. For the last 2 years, I've been working with a different vet on Mort's lameness issues. I made an appointment for him to see her next week so he can have a full lameness workup and also a second opinion on the problems he's been having with his teeth. Today really didn't turn out how I had expected. I had really gone back and forth about making and posting this video, but it is a very accurate representation of things that happen when you're dealing with the kind of horses that I get in. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.